If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Hello and welcome to If This Goes On, Don't Panic. Today we have New York Times bestselling author TJ Klune. But first, Kat, how are things going with you? What's happening?
It is snowing and snowing and snowing, and I'm so freaking tired of it.
That's funny. That's funny. It's snowing a lot here. I have to say, I'm enjoying it a little bit. I mean, after the last couple of years where I live, we've had no snow at all in the winter, which is weird, because we live in a temperate area where there's generally 4 seasons.
Uh-huh.
And that means the kids go outside and leave me and my wife alone a little bit.
Oh, that is sad. The kids need snow, I think, or like snow at any rate. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They get them outside. They can go run around, burn off some energy, I don't know, do kid stuff.
Do kid stuff.
Give us
That's
a break,
important.
So what else is going on?
Well, next month I'm going to the Barbados for a few days because I am going with my business partner to check it out to see if that's where we want to do the next Wayward Wormhole. At least that's our plan, is to do it in November. This is our trip to kind of make sure everything is feasible and hopefully head off any potential disasters.
That's right. The last time you recorded, you gave us that very cryptic message about possibly going to some place that rhymes with Schmarbados. I forgot about that.
Barbados. Yes, I can now reveal that means Barbados. Yeah. And we've got Karen Lord and Karen Joy Fowler and Tobias Bickel.
Oh, nice.
And I'm sorry, I've forgotten our 4th person, but I will remember by the time we make a formal announcement.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good crew, and the only one that I've met is Tobias, and he's awesome. So.
Oh yeah, well, and Karen Joy Fowler is just shockingly funny.
Oh, really?
She has this kind of dry, witty sense where she'll say something and it is just hysterically funny, and she'll look at you with this perfectly straight face. It's just, yeah, she's a funny one.
Okay, I have to meet her sometime. That's pretty cool. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
So let me think. Couple announcements before we get going. First of all, I know we've been saying for a while we're gonna get a website. We're fixing up a website. Blah blah blah. All this stuff. So first option has not worked out. I am working on option 2 and option 3 right now. So that's an update on that. And also, our hosting company has added a way to add transcripts now, so we don't have to rely on a website for that.
Oh, sweet.
However, I have to figure out how to get these transcripts into either an SRT file or a VTT file. So I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
It's always something, right? Like, it can't just be easy.
Yeah. Now, the file formats are such a pain in the ass. I'm trying to figure out what an SRT format would be.
So yeah, that's it. And so I don't forget, this is almost a reminder to myself. We also got a mention from somebody on Blue Sky that because we were asking people, hey, if anybody has any questions for TJ Klune, let us know. We'd be happy to ask him if we have some time. And one person did have a message for TJ, but it was not a question. So we shall reveal that when we come back.
Ooh, all right. Awesome.
All right. So we'll be right back with TJ Klune. Okay, and we are back with our guest, TJ Klune. TJ Klune is the #1 New York Times and #1 USA Today best-selling Lambda Literary Award-winning author of Somewhere Beyond the Sea, The House in the Cerulean Sea, Under the Whispering Door, In the Lives of Puppets, the Green Creek series for adults, the Extraordinary series for teens, and more. Being queer himself, Klune believes it's important now more than ever to have accurate, positive queer representation in stories. So, I before we get started on the questions, TJ, we had somebody write to us that wanted to thank you for your books. This person, their name was Rubius, Roobius, on Blue Sky. And they said thank you for your books. My 9-year-old uses Cerulean somewhere and the puppets as their comfort books and has learned so much by the gentle lessons given. We are on our way to the bookstore to look for another that they might like. My NB kiddo is glad to feel represented. So wanted to let you know that.
Oh,
That is amazing. That is absolutely wonderful. I am honestly, anytime I've been fortunate enough to hear stuff like that a lot lately. And anytime I get a message like that, it's like the first time all over again. It's extraordinarily humbling and profound. And if kid TJ knew that one day he'd be doing this,
yeah.
he would never believe it because that's
Yeah.
all he ever wanted.
I was doing some research on you, as I do sometimes. And you had mentioned that you've always wanted to be a writer in the one interview. And you also mentioned something else that was very interesting. You mentioned that you really like Diane Wynne Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Howl's Moving Castle is one of the most definitive books of my childhood.
Yeah.
And then of course it was adapted in a Studio Ghibli film, and it was a very different beast, that film, but I adored it in ways that few films have touched me. But Diana Wynne Jones, it was one of the most profound influences. Her, Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett, and Stephen King.
Lovely. What a lovely set of writers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Diane Wynne Jones is probably the least known of all those. I happen to be reading the Crestomancy series with my son.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about Diane Wynne Jones that you like really enjoy? Like, what is it about her that just, clicks with you?
It's the sense of place. So, what I love about Diana Wynne Jones and what draws me to her writing and authors like her is that she had a sense of imagination that felt childlike, but also felt grounded in a very adult reality. And she understood that it's not just the big picture that makes the story, it's the tiny little details that go into making a book. You have a place like Howl's Castle, it has to feel like a living, breathing character. It has to feel like it actually exists, because if it doesn't, you're just in this house and you're not really learning anything about it, then it doesn't really do anything for the story. But when you pack it full of these tiny little details, and then those details could be on display in the Ghibli film with their own touch on what it would look like, especially Calcifer, which is my favorite. Yeah. And it's extraordinary how this singular story influenced me, but it also the interpretation that Ghibli did is so very different, but still profound in its own ways. I mean, the Howl in the Ghibli film and the Howl in the book are two very different characters. And I love how there's that disparate feeling between the two of them, even though they're so obviously related.
Yeah. See, now I have not had a chance to read Howl's Moving Castle yet. I've seen the movie many times. So.
Yeah, the movie is a different. To put it bluntly, in the book, Howl is a fuckboy. So that's the difference between book Howl and movie Howl. Is in book Howl, he's a fuckboy. Yeah. So just go in knowing that, and you'll be fine.
All right. Yeah. That's hilarious. I didn't intend to start with Diane Wynne Jones, so this is funny. This happened. My first initial question was actually going to be, do you believe in aliens?
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. Now, does that mean aliens with intelligence who have big, huge spacecrafts that fly around? Okay, yeah, I'll say I believe in that too. But I also think it's the idea of the hubris to believe that we are the only people in the world, the only people in the universe, the only planet that would be able to support any kind of life. Think about it. If we found water, I mean, we're finding water on moons for planets in our own solar system that we didn't know were there. What's under the water? If there's some kind of weird fish, guess what? that's an alien.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me. But do I believe that we have been visited by advanced beings? Man, yeah. I'll totally go there and say, yeah, I do. I think so. I don't know. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they did, but there's just too much. I mean, hell, it's so funny. In the past couple of years, the government has even explicitly come out and said, yeah, there's things that we don't understand that we can't explain. And everybody in the world is kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's just move on. It's kind of like how the way news goes these days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else is happening?
Yeah. My father is obsessed with that stuff, by the way, completely obsessed. I like to the point where I'm like a little worried about him. Like he hasn't gone like
Oh,
the
yeah.
direction of MAGA or Fox or anything, but I'm like, Dad, you might want to find something better to do in retirement than watch YouTube videos about aliens, you know?
Oh my God. When History Channel used to show history stuff
Yes.
Oh,
before they
yeah.
turned it, and then they started with Ancient Aliens. Man, I ate that shit up. I have to be clear though. I know it's BS. I
Yeah.
absolutely know
Yeah.
there's all these weird little connections that they're trying to make and everything like that. I know, but at the same time, this lizard part of my brain goes, yes, aliens built the pyramids. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to get all the conspiracy books out of the library when I was in middle school. I remember it very clearly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I did too. And that was, I blame it on, I'm a child. I was born in the 80s, so I came of age in the 90s. And I 100% blame it on the X-Files, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
an obsession
Mhm.
of mine in the 90s. And obviously, Fox Mulder made me gay. And it's just one of those things that the X-Files has been in my existence. I mean, since I could really remember. I mean, that show came out in what, like 1992? I was 10 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
And I grew up with that show. And of course, when, everything is about conspiracies and governmental conspiracies and aliens, and like, of course, a kid is going to be like, yes, all of this is real. Yes, there is a secret part of the FBI called the X-Files. Yes, this all has to be real. Yeah, right. But that's the thing about conspiracies. There's sometimes is that there's so much logic to it that you can't help just to go, well, maybe, but it's where you draw the line that it becomes very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kat, do you believe in aliens? Do you think aliens have visited us?
Oh, I do. I mean, I think as TJ said, it is just monumental hubris to think we are the only possible manifestation of intelligent life in the universe,
Yeah.
or even on this planet. I mean, because dolphins are. Well, I mean, okay, so I'm getting sidetracked. Yes, I do.
No worries. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah. I agree with you both, So you mentioned conspiracies, TJ, which I think is interesting. And just to give our listeners a little context, in The Bones Beneath My Skin, the book that we're discussing today, conspiracy and aliens play a major part. In fact, and this is not a spoiler because it's revealed. Well, let me say it's hinted on extremely early in the book, right?
Right.
One of the main characters, Artemis Darth Vader.
Darth Vader,
What a great name.
best name ever.
Best name ever. Like, Kat and I have agreed on that, by the way, TJ. Artemis Darth Vader.
I would have to agree. I was very tickled with myself when I came up with that name.
But Artemis is an alien, right? And later on, they start tuning into this conspiracy channel. That's basically like, I think you don't name it, but you definitely dropped a reference to Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast with Art Bell, man.
Yeah.
Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Let me tell you about the other part of my childhood where I used to listen to Coast AM with all the people calling in about, I've experienced this, I've experienced that, I've seen Bigfoot, I've seen Sasquatch, I've seen, Nessie, I was abducted by aliens, the government caused 9/11, all of that kind of stuff. Absolutely. Yes, Art Bell. I did my own spin on Art Bell. I'm so pleased you noticed that, because you get to a certain point when because Art Bell, he's no longer with us. I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
I know. Yeah, because I know he doesn't do the show anymore, anyways. But there was a very, very specific point in time when he was one of the most think Howard Stern levels of popularity during that time. You had Howard Stern, and then you had Art Bell with Coast to Coast AM. And something I think it's very important to point out is, the 90s were very odd very weird, strange time because at the beginning of the 90s, nobody had cell phones, nobody had the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the 90s, everybody had cell phones and everybody had internet, or at least
Mm-hmm.
most places were getting internet in the United States. You could argue that any one of the prior 100 years of technological, leaps that we made were the most important, but the 90s were the ones that connected the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed conspiracy theorists to come together in ways that they had never been able to before.
You never thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating to me that, when you have these kind of, when you're conspiracy minded and you're reading books, you're reading whatever manifesto that the Unabomber put out or anything like that, you're reading in a book. You're not talking to other people about it per se, but when you get like-minded people together, that's how stuff like QAnon happens. That's how all all this conspiracy BS comes fodder. And it's just getting worse and worse now as we're advancing.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Just a real quick observation. Do you remember the X-Files episode? Do either of you remember this episode where they have to stop? It must have been in the first or second season. They had to stop and explain what the internet was because.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a time capsule ass thing, and I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and the cell phones, like in that very first season, like he pulls out a mobile phone and it's the size of like an old landline phone.
Yeah. Right. And that was the advanced technology that nobody else got to have, but this was the FBI.
Yeah. That was so funny. I was thinking about the cell phone too, but the one episode, they're like, yeah, they're on these things called discussion boards, and someone's tracking someone else down and killing them.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was in the early episodes. Do you remember the early episodes when Gillian Anderson's character she like analyzed the episode and she like wrote a report to the FBI at the very end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a thing called the internet.
Yes.
Yeah. The glowing person.
X-Files are huge for me. Huge. But yeah, I did have a question. So you've been mentioning the 90s a lot. So the book, of course, takes place in the 90s. But I believe it was 1996. Is that right? 96?
Yeah.
Okay. Why 96 is my next question for you.
Because it felt like that was the beginning. I don't want to say the beginning of the end. That sounds too dark. Because to me, that's when the advancement started happening. That's when technology started to take leaps and bounds forward. That's when Coast to Coast AM was at its peak. But specifically, also, that's when in the United States around that time was something called Hail Bop was coming towards the Earth. Hail Bop was a comet that was a once, for us, it'll be a once in a lifetime thing. But it was a comet that hadn't been here for thousands of years. They thought they did the math for all of it. You can look all that stuff up. It was named for the two people that discovered it, Hale and Bop. Mm-hmm. And what bloomed from there was a man named Marshall Applewhite. And Marshall Applewhite had a cult called Heaven's Gate. And Heaven's Gate believed, as Marshall Applewhite believed, that there was an alien craft in the tail of this comet, and that when the comet passed as close as it ever would to the Earth, they would ascend from their earthly bodies to the craft and then leave this universe. You can watch Marshall Applewhite's videos if you've never heard of him or this cult called Heaven's Gate. I guarantee you that if you see his face, you will be like, I've seen him at some point or another, because he recorded hours and hours and hours of video about what he was doing, his ideology, the reason behind Heaven's Gate. And then,
interesting.
As the comet got closest, they committed mass suicide with Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
And from there, obviously, people were like, obviously they were lunatics. They were out of their minds. They died for nothing. But it just shows you how powerful belief is, especially when it falls into the hands of somebody who's charismatic. And I don't necessarily want to say evil, but broken somehow.
Mhm.
And I wanted to explore that idea, because being a writer, one of the worst things that can happen to a writer is a 2-word question. What if? Because that what if opens the door. What if they were right? What if there was something there? And what if it was on this earth before and we had to find out, through the novel what happens from there? But the point I'm trying to get to is Heaven's Gate still exists as an entity today.
Really?
In fact, when I was writing this book, if you look up, you can go to the Heaven's Gate website right now. It looks exactly like it did in the 90s. It's this GeoCities hellscape kind of, website. And I talked to the people who ran the website.
Huh.
They're not necessarily part of Heaven's Gate. And you need to think of this website as a museum exhibit. It's not like recruitment or anything like that. It's basically a time capsule of what it was like when this happened. And so I got to talk back and forth with the people who run the website, and was able to just get some information about what it was like, and to talk to Marshall Applewhite, how he was so charismatic. And I wanted to use that for my character called Peter in this book, because to me, I'm fascinated by cult mentality,
Uh-huh.
because if you think about it, the idea of a cult is typically following one charismatic individual. Isn't that Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that God?
Yeah.
Isn't that, could that technically be considered a cult, because you follow someone's teachings to the letter? And if people who are not following those teachings, or if those teachings tell you that other people aren't good, then you're going to do that. You're going to act like that. You're going to do that. So I love this idea that cults are basically bisected mini religions forming around an individual. Whereas if you were to call, say, Christianity a cult, Christians would be rightfully offended. But at the same time, aren't you following the teachings of a charismatic individual?
Right. It's kind of a paradox
Yeah.
because of the popularity, right?
Right, it is. Right, exactly. And I find that fascinating. What does it take? What does it take to give your will over to another person completely and fully? Because that's what cults do.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
With any cult, you think Jim Jones, you think David Koresh and Waco, you think, which also was in the 90s. You think Heaven's Gate. You think cults that happen in a lot of hardcore cults happen in South America. And they're all based around mysticism and things like that. There's all these different things, but what does it mean for a person to give up everything about themselves to one individual? And what point in their life do they get to that point to think this is the best step for me? What led them to that? I find that idea fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most interesting characters you have in the book is a character who's not in it very much, but is one of the cult followers. I think, what's her name? Dolores, I think?
Yes.
She was like a former teacher and a grandmother, and then she went and joined Peter's cult, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she wasn't even in it for very long, but she was just such a relatable character, kind of scary relatable, I thought.
Well, that's just it. There's, when you watch like documentaries or you read books on cults and the histories of cults and the psychology of cults, you'll find that even though these people have given themselves up to whatever ideology or whatever person that is running them, they're still rational. They still seem rational. I maybe not, they're not rational, but they seem like they are, because they don't see anything wrong. They don't see the danger. They don't want to see it, because how freeing must it be to have somebody else worry about everything and tell you what to think, and tell you when to eat, what to dress, how to act, what job you have to do. Because many of these, if not all of these people that are in cults, they leave everything behind. Family, their jobs, finances, all of that gets left behind, because that one person or this one ideology becomes everything that they are. But it's still scary, because they can still be rational or seem rational.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Kat, I feel like I'm getting all the questions in here. Do you want to jump in?
I know, I love this book, and now that you've said the thing about the X-Files, I'm just like, "Oh, shit, that's all through the current book." That's really awesome. But, last year I read, In the Lives of Puppets,
Yeah.
which I really loved a lot, and
Thank
I
you.
was just curious, what drew you to the Pinocchio story?
The original version of the story of Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio is such a fascinating tale. Like most people, I'm not going to try to generalize the world. Most people in America, if they have any relation to the story of Pinocchio, it's the 1940s Disney version.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
sure, yeah.
and Disney is, and any kind of fable that you can think of. Little Mermaid is based on Hans Christian Andersen, his gay parable.
Mhm.
And they take them and they Disney-fy them.
Yeah.
They in the 1930s and the 1940s and 1950s, they allowed some darkness in. If you remember the Disney version of Pinocchio, the scene with the boys
Oh,
changing
yeah.
into
Oh, yeah.
donkeys was quite terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite
Oh,
terrifying.
it's awful.
But
Yeah.
the original story, as like with most fables, is so much darker and so much funnier
Mhm, mhm.
than what the retelling is. And so, like for instance, the story opens with Collodi just like trolling the crap out of the children that he's supposedly reading to,
Ah,
because because his story opens with him saying, "Do you know what this is?" And the children cry out, and he goes, "No, children, that's not it at all. This is just a block of wood." It's so funny to me to see that. But originally, Collodi wrote this to be a serial, which was, they used to write stories and publish them weekly or monthly in newspapers and
mhm.
magazines. And when he wrote the original story, the original ending for the story was that Pinocchio gets murdered and hung from a tree for his hubris of
Oh,
wanting
wow.
to become human.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Collodi's editor came in and said, "Hey, if you're writing a children's story, you can't really do that to the child." So Collodi changed it to the story that we know today, and then through the Disney version. But the undercurrent of darkness through the
Mhm.
adventures of Pinocchio is extraordinary. And I love that, like with most fables. And Pinocchio has always stuck out to me to be a story that could be told in so many different ways. And I remember
Mhm.
at the time when I was writing this and in the lead up to the book coming out, I was like, wow, nobody has done anything with Pinocchio in a long time. And then right before my book came out, there was a Pinocchio video game. There was a Pinocchio
Oh,
Oh,
Robert
God.
God.
Zemeckis movie. There was a different Pinocchio movie. I was like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? But it lent itself. And I have to be honest, it lent itself to the story. And the reason this story exists, because I was trying to figure out a way to retell the story of Pinocchio, or at least do a version of Pinocchio.
Mhm.
The only reason that book exists at all is because I bought a Roomba vacuum cleaner. And and like humans do, we tend to anthropomorphize or give human-like
Yes.
qualities to inhuman objects. So I put googly eyes on him and I named
Oh,
him
yeah.
Hank. Now, when you turned on the machine for the first time, it has to go and map out your house so it knows where to go. This stupid little machine got itself stuck in a corner and made the saddest beeping sound I have ever heard a machine make. And all of a sudden, I had this huge explosion in my head. Pinocchio got pulled in, and then all of a sudden, I was like, wait, what if there was a character in a book that was a Roomba vacuum cleaner, but he had social anxiety and his name was Rambo? But he wouldn't be the
Yes.
main character. The main character is going to be human, so the real boy,
Yeah.
puppet thing could come into play. But if he's human being raised by a family of machines, he would have to have some kind of doctor, some kind of nurse. Okay, what if he had like a nursing machine? But what if she was a sociopath?
Oh,
And
no.
then what if you named her Nurse Ratched? But
Oh,
Nurse
no.
Ratched was an acronym for Registered Automaton to care, heal, educate, and drill. And what if?
Yeah.
And so that just kept going. What if? What if? What if? What if? And that's how that story came to be. I love that book because the only reason it exists is because of capitalism, because I bought a frickin' Roomba vacuum.
Ah,
I love that. As I said, I loved the book, and now I love it even more. Your first book, or not, I don't know, was The House in the Cerulean Sea, was your first book to hit, or your debut, was that their debut novel?
I was with an indie publisher from
Oh, okay.
2011 to 2018. And then,
Uh-huh.
and I did okay enough that I was able to quit my job and write full time.
Nice.
And then,
Nice.
I got called up to the big leagues via tour and
Oh, nice.
Macmillan with The House in the Cerulean Sea. And that was in 2018. And then in 2019, they gave me the best news I could possibly imagine. A release date for The House in the Cerulean Sea, March 17th,
Uh-huh.
2020.
Oh,
Do you
God.
guys remember what happened that
Oh my
week
gosh.
here in the United States?
What?
Yes.
So I want you to imagine this. Okay, get ready. Imagine you are getting ready to go on your first ever national book tour. You've never done anything. It's your
No.
first book in hardcover with a major publisher. And then the Thursday before the book comes out, you get a call from the publisher saying, "Hey, have you heard of this thing called COVID?" And you're like, "Yeah." And they go, "Okay, well, it's getting pretty bad. So your tour's canceled. Everybody who's on tour, they're getting sent home, but your book still comes out next week. So hooray."
Yeah.
Oh no.
God.
And then, wait, it gets even better. And then the book came out. And of course, that's the week that the pandemic exploded in the United States. So I thought the book was just going to get swallowed up by the pandemic, which it rightly should have been.
Yeah.
I've heard countless stories from people whose books did just that. People who had been working for years to get to that point, much like I had. And COVID ruined so much for so many people across our industry.
Yeah.
But for some reason, over the course of that year, more and more people kept picking up that book. 8 months after it came out, it debuted on the New York Times bestseller list. Get this, on January 6, 2021.
Oh no.
So, the New York Times, the bestseller lists get released like at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah.
So imagine what all of us have been doing all day on January 6, 2021. We were watching the Capitol insurrection.
Yeah.
And so your editor calls and says, "Hey," and you're like, "Hey." She goes, "I know this is really weird timing, but you're a New York Times bestseller." And I said, "I can't announce this now." But guess what? I totally did. I totally got off the phone and announced it right then. I said, "Hey, I know everything sucks right now, but look at me."
Well, that's understandable. Oh my God.
It was a very awesome time.
I think your book did really well because, I mean, it was a time when people were inside reading, and B, people needed comfort reads. I mean,
Absolutely.
in some ways, I think you kind of were the forerunner of this whole wave of cozy fantasy.
I think that's fair. I also think that you'd want to add in Travis Baldree to that with Legends and Lattes, and he's a delightful human being too. But my book came out, and then Legends of Lattes came out, and it did, and you can look back at that time with rose tinted glasses and think, oh, it's just because of the pandemic that happened. But no, I think it showed that while, cozy fantasy became the nom de plume, the term of the day at that time, you have to you can look back to Diana Wynne Jones. She was doing it. She was doing it already. And you can look back to Terry Pratchett doing it already with that kind of humor. You can look at Guards, which is my favorite Terry Pratchett book, and look at that and see that was already there. It's kind of like how romantasy is the big thing now. Right. Romantasy has always been there. They just got a shiny new name for it.
Well, a lot of that's about kind of like, oh, let's do a special book display.
Yes, exactly what it is. It's marketing.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, speaking of marketing, you have declared that you are the anti J.K. Rowling.
Hell yeah.
I am sorry. There is a need for an anti J.K. Rowling because she's a horrible woman. But I think a mantle well assumed.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Look, that was in the afterword of Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I wrote that book and dedicated it to the trans community, who have always been part of the queer community, who will always be part of the queer community. And I can't imagine the absolute horror it would be to have a writer you look up to suddenly turn around and say your existence means nothing, or you shouldn't exist, or you're wrong for existing. I can't imagine what that would feel like. Look, I read all the Harry Potter books. I stood in line for the very last one when it came out.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the movies, but look, you can have that part of Harry Potter in your life and look back fondly on it, while also knowing that J.K. Rowling has turned into that which she wrote about that the children should fight against. She became the villain. She became the monster, and it's not enough that she is coming down on one of the most marginalized groups in the world, the group with some of the highest suicide rates in the world.
Right.
She's coming down repeatedly. It's her personality now. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then, it sucks that people are still giving her money. I don't know. I didn't mean to say it like that, but it sucks that somebody like her can mean so much to so many people, and then turn around and stab them in the back, essentially. Look, she said it. She has a right to think what she wants. Absolutely. And I also have a right to think that her way of thinking is pretty shitty. Yeah. So that's what when I say I want to be the anti J.K. Rowling, it's not because I'm against her writing or against her books. I'm against her beliefs that somehow trans people are lesser, because that is absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Yeah. When you come down again on an already beaten down community, that doesn't make you a good person. That makes you an absolute bully. And I just do not stand for that. I know what it's like to be bullied. I'll never know what it's like to be a trans person, but I know what it feels like to be bullied for who I care about, who I am attracted to. I get that. And nobody should be made to feel lesser, especially not by some billionaire on the internet.
Yeah.
Yes. Amen.
Sorry, that was my rant.
No. We like a good rant.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Alan.
I was gonna say, is there like a published way to like a published intervention, like a published J.K. Rowling intervention that you can have, like, because there's just so many people.
Look, here's my thing. Like, I would give transphobic people the benefit of the doubt if they hadn't become what she's become. I would never want to do an intervention for her, because I believe she is lost to the brain rot. I absolutely believe that. And it should not be up to queer people or trans people to do something like that, to educate her. She has made her choice to believe what she wants. And we have the right to tell others that she is morally, ethically wrong. She's reprehensible. I mean, it comes down to it. You're reprehensible when you can use your millions of followers to single out very specific tiny little Twitter accounts about trans people, or if you retweet pictures of trans women who don't look like you think women should look, then and you're basically pile driving. You're forcing all of your followers, and many of whom agree with her, to attack these individuals. Who has the right to do that? What is the point? What is the purpose of going after an individual like that? I just don't understand. Absolutely. I don't understand cruelty. I have this saying where I do not like people. I love humanity because humanity gave us books and movies and art and dancing and all of this wonderful thing, but people just suck. And that's becoming more and more apparent.
Well, yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah. I was referring more to the people who are still obsessed with the Harry Potter books, right? Because I feel like I go on to like some of these book boards and stuff that I occasionally go to, and there's still people, and I just want to be like, hey, you do know that she's like a terrible person, right? Like,
Let me tell you how I dealt with that. When I was in or last year for Somewhere Beyond the Sea, I was invited wonderfully to be the keynote speaker at the Bookmarks Festival in North Carolina. And I was getting interviewed on the stage after my speech, and we were having this discussion about J.K. Rowling, because obviously I talked about her in my speech. And the gentleman who was on stage with me, a psychologist, now that I think about it, I wonder if that was just a big group intervention for me. But He was talking about how he has his kid is non-binary and
Mhm.
how they are loving Harry Potter. And he asked me straight up, do you think I should take this book away from my kid? And I told him, absolutely not. You never, ever take a book away from a child. Never take a book away from a child. But your kid, your 13-year-old kid who knows themselves so well to know that they're non-binary, who has that kind of inner voice to know themselves so well, present them with the information. Tell them, hey,
Yeah.
yes, you're reading these books, you're enjoying them. I just wanted to let you know this is what the author believes. This is what the author believes about people like you. If you want to continue reading them, I will support you in that because, again, you're a kid. Don't take books away from kids. But I think it's important to have that conversation. If your kid has the wherewithal to know who they are inside, they can handle that kind of conversation and make a decision for themselves. So many decisions are being made on behalf of children, what books they can read, what their trans classmates can or cannot be involved in, but nobody's asking the kids what they think. They are smarter, more worldly, more savvier than we ever were at their age. And they are more empathetic. Why is nobody asking them what they think?
Yeah.
Absolutely good point. Question for you. I mean, with everything happening in US politics right now, I mean, are you frightened to write about queer relationships and things like that?
Absolutely not. I'll do that too with my dying breath. Absolutely not. I will never be afraid of who I am. I spent the first half of my life being afraid of who I was. I grew up in a very shitty home that did not like me in any way, shape, or form. I spent the first half of my life being afraid. Now I'm just pissed off. Never. Every one of my books will always have queer people front and center. I will tell our stories like so many awesome other queer authors are doing, and nothing is going to stop me. And I'm so lucky to have the publisher I do, who Tor is one of the best publishers when it comes to queer speculative fiction. And I am so grateful that I get to be part of that.
Awesome.
Nice.
I asked that just because, I find myself being an outspoken person myself and fairly progressive. I find myself wondering, like, should I be worried? Should I be concerned? You know what I mean? Should I worry about my family?
But I mean, Alan, think about what happened with the Worldcon in Chengdu and how the American administrators basically censored things, not because they were being pressed to be censored, but because they were worried about censorship. And
Right.
so, like, don't obey before they actually ask you to, would be my advice.
My whole thing is this: the queer community has been through the trenches before, and if we have to go through there again, we're going to drag you down in the mud with us. It's how it's going to be. It has to be. We have fought. So many generations before us have fought and died for our rights. An entire generation of queer men was killed out with the HIV/AIDS crisis, and nobody gave a crap about them there except for lesbians. So here's what's going to happen. You want to come down in the dirt? We're going to get in the dirt. I have no problem with that because I am the person that believes that people should mind their own goddamn business.
Yeah.
How hard is that? When you have entire states enacting laws that prevent trans kids from playing sports when legitimately there's only one trans kid in the entire state that's trying and they're changing the law just to go after that one trans kid. What do you think that trans kid's going to think? Grow up. None of these people have my back. None of these people trust me. It's just, it blows my mind that this is what we're focusing on. All these billionaires that are now in power, if they pulled their money together, they could end hunger in the United States. They could end homelessness together. But instead, we're going after these nonsense culture war things, going after teachers, librarians, booksellers who are not paid anywhere near enough to deal with this bullshit. I just don't understand where empathy has been lost. I don't understand why you can have empathy, why minding your own business isn't an option for so many people. What I do in my own home does not affect anybody else in the entire world as long as I am being safe, legal, and, absolutely sane. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's just, I never understood why so many people care about what others do when it doesn't affect them.
To tie this back to your writing, do you feel like your focus on empathy is related to the quote unquote coziness of your fantasy novels?
No, I'll be honest. I don't really like the term cozy, especially when it comes to, because it feels like at times it feels like you can be pigeonholed into something. And I'm never going to write these same books over and over and over and over again. That's not how it's going to happen. But empathy, I don't care what genre I'm reading. If my favorite genre to read is horror, when I'm reading horror and I see empathy in horror, I'm like that. Okay, I like when people act like human beings, how people should be acting, and there should be empathy. I don't know when that was lost. I don't know how that was broken for so many people, but empathy is one of the strongest attributes a person can have. It shows that you actually can care about other people that are not yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making me think about the characters that you've written in here, and your novel. Two of the characters, I would say, not Artemis Darth Vader,
Nate and Alex.
Nate and Alex. That's it. They're very hard-headed people, right?
They're idiots. Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. You know, how did you go about writing a relationship like that? Because they're, like you said, they're idiots. They're very hard-headed. They kind of bounce off of each other for a really long time, right? But gradually they kind of drift together, right?
Right. So to me, look, when the novel opens, this is going to be a spoiler since it's literally the first chapter. Nate is a broken individual. He has lost everything. He has no family, or the family he does have does not want anything to do with him. He's lost his job as a journalist by his own fault for some pretty egregious conduct. And, he's lost everything. The only thing he has left to him is this tiny little cabin in the Cascade Mountains in Oregon. And so when he goes there and he finds two people who should not be there, in this case, Alex, it's this idea of Alex does not know that Nate is coming, obviously. And so what are these two people that are broken in different ways? When they first meet, what's going to happen? Every single defense is going to go up. Everything. Alex has a very good reason for his defenses going up. And Nate does not expect people to be in his house. So when he gets there, his defenses are immediately up. But when I love the idea, and I want to make sure I'm very clear with this. So many people think that they're broken when something bad has happened to them, and or tragedy, some kind of, it doesn't even to be a big tragedy. It might be the loss of a person. It might be the loss of an opportunity, and they think themselves broken. But what they don't realize is that maybe they are broken a little bit, but they might find somebody else that can fit them the same way. The two little puzzle pieces interlocking. And that's what Alex and Nate are. They are hard-headed. They are stupid and stubborn, but they're also coming from a very similar place through their own unique experiences. And I like the idea of people who are lost finding each other and realizing that they fit together. Not just Nate and Alex, but also Artemis, who has her own journey that she goes on. She is too broken in her own ways, with everything that she's been through that you learn over the course of the novel. So these three, they were meant to be. That's how they are. And then Nate and Alex's relationship beyond that is just a slow grind towards that. And I did worry for a moment, when you get towards the end of something like that, with it's a big action, all these big things happen. Is this a relationship, or is it trauma bonding? Is there still something there at the very end? Yeah. Because when you go through all these hugely exciting things and big things happen, of course you're going to navigate, or you'll be drawn to the person who is on your side and going in the same direction. So is that trauma bond, or is that something that can last? And so I wanted to make sure that the foundation was there. So the house that I built for them was not on shaky ground.
Nice. Are there going to be more Cerulean Sea books?
There will be one more.
One more.
It is years off at this point. I actually just started writing it last month.
Ooh.
And I know the title. I know what it's going to be about, and I'm not going to say anything about it. But I think I think a good interval, House in the Cerulean Sea to Somewhere Beyond the Sea, was 2020 to 2024. That sounds like a good interval for the next time. Let me do some other things, because I have some really cool other things in the works over the next couple of years that I am very excited about, that show a different side of my writing.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, we are coming up on an hour here. Do we want to try and fit in a couple more questions, Kat, or do we want to?
I think we should probably start winding down.
Remember, this will go on
Unfortunately,
for 2.5 hours.
Well, that's a perfect segue into one of our questions. I don't usually ask this one before the other ending questions, but since we're on the topic, what new work do you have coming out soon?
So actually, I'm going to be doing something a little different with The Bones Beneath My Skin being my only novel this year. I'm not releasing anything else because I'm going to give myself a break. I have not been able to take a break in many years. So I'm going to give myself a break this time, because a very cool opportunity fell in my lap that will be announced at some point this year, I believe, for a book of mine coming out that will be released in 2027. But I can say this, after my break, I have a book coming out in 2026 that is a literary speculative fiction novel about two men in a queer couple in their 70s. They've been in a relationship for 40 years. And what happens when the entire world is going to end and they have to fulfill a promise before that happens. So it's these two elderly men getting in a Winnebago, driving from one side of the country to the other. And the whole book is about the people they meet along the way. And it is, I am so excited for people to read this book, and it's going to be very cool. And that'll be 2026 or something like that, I think. So, but I get a break first, and I'm very happy about it.
well earned.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome. I was waiting for you to say you're writing some horror in there, since you're such a horror fan.
I will say that with Tor Nightfire, there's most likely going to be a very cool announcement soon. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
Cool.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, horror is my number one, and I've always wanted to get into it, and I think I got something going on with it. So we'll see what happens with it.
Cool.
Nice.
So now the more traditional ending question here. What is bringing you hope right now?
So a bit of a downer first. I'm sorry. I had a lovely cat named Otter. I had her for 17 years. I rescued her as a feral kitten that my sister found outside her apartment in the bushes. And she lived with me through 5 different homes, 3 different states. And unfortunately, last November, she was diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer. And she ended up passing away on January 1st of this year. So just a little bit ago. And so what has brought me hope since then, and what has helped me through my grief, is my idiot dog, Hendrix. He is my baby. He is my boy. He knows that I've been pretty sad about losing one of my long-term friends. And just today we went to the park, and it felt like I hadn't laughed in a little while. And then all of a sudden, these Canadian geese just came up running through the snow towards us, and Hendrix lost his damn mind. So what happened? He pulled me on the leash. I fell face first into the snow, and he came right back and looked at me, with that sheepish dog face expression that they have, licking my face, going, "I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. You okay?" And I just laughed my ass off, laying on the ground in the middle of my driveway in the snow with my dog. And that, I felt good. I felt hopeful, and I felt happy.
Awesome.
That is lovely.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That is.
Yeah. I love that. We are both animal people here, and we both have cats, multiple cats actually. So
I hope to one day get another cat. I just need some time before that happens, because that Otter was everything. She went with me everywhere, and she is just For some reason, she loved only me. If there were people at my house, she would sit on top
Oh,
of the
yeah.
couch and hiss at them until they left. But she adored, I got to be her person, and there's no
Yeah.
greater gift than that.
Oh,
That's
how
awesome.
special.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know when my wife and I's first cat passed, man, we waited for a couple years. Then we got a new one, and now we have 4.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm worried is going to happen. Because I was like, well, I've been a good, responsible cat owner for 17 years. What if I go there and like, yeah, these 3 are bonded together, and I'm like, okay,
Exactly.
because I would do
Oh
it. That
man.
would be that sucker that would take all 3 of them.
Yes, we probably would too. And my wife keeps trying to talk us in. Well, maybe just one. No, no more. We're done.
Yeah.
4 is good.
Well, that's how I got Bruce and Clark, where they were brothers and they were kittens at the shelter. And the lady that had been fostering them really didn't want them split up. So
Those were Bruce and Clark were the name of my brother's dogs before they passed away. They're so sweet.
oh, how funny! Yes.
Love that. Love that. And then Baby Bear. We can't forget Baby Bear.
Aw.
And Baby Bear, he's the stray who came in from the cold.
Well, you know what? I keep hearing this thing about the cat distribution system, and so I'm hoping that happens to me again. So maybe one day that will.
They do sometimes just show up.
Yep. I'm looking.
Yeah. Definitely. It's happened to my parents 3 times, I think.
Well, I
Yeah.
live in
Oh,
the
yeah.
mountains in the middle of nowhere, so it's probably going to be a little harder for me.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, where can everybody find you online?
My remaining social media is Instagram, TJ Klune Books. If you want to see pictures of books and my dog, that's where you can go. And
Awesome.
my
Nice.
website is tjklunebooks.com. And I really do not update blogs there at all, so don't worry about that. But if you want to see where I'm going to be on tour, all the information's on my website.
Awesome. And that's because he's going to
Awesome.
be blogging for If This Goes On, Don't Panic once you blackmail him.
So many blogs.
Yeah. All right. So
All right.
with that, this has been our interview with TJ Klune. Thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ellen Cat, for having me. I greatly
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah. It's been fun.
And that was our interview with TJ Klune. Before we keep going, just remind everybody that we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/if this goes on. Please check us out there. Actually, I have been thinking I need to update it and ask our patrons who they would like to have come on the podcast next, because we haven't done one of those in a little while. So it's time. It's time. With a bunch of other stuff too. I encourage you to go out and check that out if you're not into that. There's also Ko-fi. That's Kofi. That's more good for like one-time donations if you'd like to do that. Just look us up on there. And then finally, the thing that we most ask of you is please share us with your friends
Yeah.
on whatever social media you're on, or just like even in real life if people do that anymore. Just share us. That's the
Just
best thing for
share
us.
us.
Just share us. That's all you have to do. Just share us. So what are you reading right now, Kat?
I actually one of my Christmas presents to myself was I filled out the last of the 10-book collection of Theodore Sturgeon stories, and I am working my way through that. I'm on volume 6 right now, and I'm also
Holy hell, there's 10?
Yeah, there's 10. It's amazing. It really is a
Jesus.
really interesting read. The other book I'm reading is called Three Rocks: The Story of Ernie Bushmiller, the Man Who Created Nancy. And it's done by Bill Griffith, who is the guy who does Zippy the Pinhead, if you're familiar with that comic. And it is a
Oh.
graphic novel about the story of Ernie Bushmiller, the man who created Nancy. And it is really interesting.
Huh. Interesting.
What are
Okay.
you reading?
Well, I am reading Moby Dick right now.
You're reading Moby Dick.
I am.
Why? So A, I approve of this, but B, what has led you to read Moby Dick?
Oh boy. Okay. I think there's a whole like conglomeration of things really when it comes down to it. Well, first of all, I was an English major, right? So
Mhm.
I've read a significant number of the classics in college and past college, and this is one I just never got to.
Wow.
You add that to Sam Miller always going on about it,
Yeah, yeah,
and then our friends over at Hugo Girl, the Hugo Girl podcast, they're huge
yeah.
fans of Moby Dick as well. And
Yeah,
so between Sam and our friends over at Hugo Girl, they finally convinced me to purchase it. So I've had it sitting like in my audiobook pile for a while now. And I'm like, okay, I try to read at least one classic every year.
yeah, that's good.
I'm buckling down and I'm doing it. And
So have you started it?
oh yeah. I'm
Okay. So
probably,
what do you think so far?
gosh, I'd say I'm over a third of the way in. Uh,
Okay, okay.
wow. Okay. So multiple feelings. First of all, it is way funnier than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
I had no idea that it was funny at all.
Yeah.
The first 12-ish chapters, like when Ishmael meets, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name.
Quig?
Queequeg. When Ishmael meets Queequeg is honestly, it's like a sitcom. It's just like
Yes,
straight out of a
yes.
sitcom. I think because so he'll basically have like some narrative chapters, and then he'll have some very like thematic chapters.
Yeah,
So like he has one chapter that's basically like all these descriptions of whales.
yeah.
Another one that's like a meditation on the color white.
Yeah,
That's actually I just finished that one yesterday, I think. In like it gets a bit pretentious, I think, sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
you know. Um but ultimately I'm actually liking it more than I thought I was going to like it.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. And
For you.
I'm surprised at how experimental it is. Like I did not
Yeah.
expect that at all.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's back when they're still trying to figure out what novels are, right? And so
Yeah.
a lot of kind of wild stuff going on then.
Now that you mention that, it's kind of interesting to think about that and then compare it to where things are now, where I could see this
Yeah.
a modern book being written in this very same
Oh,
way,
yeah.
you
Oh,
know.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like full circle here.
Everything old is new again. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also about to start a book called Cryptid Bits by
Cryptid.
by Jess Sims. It's very tiny. It's about let me see. I'm looking here. It says 65 pages, but let me tell you, this is about half the size of a normal book.
Oh, nice.
Pages. So I'm trying to read this in one go.
Oh, yeah.
But I bought this from the author at who was at a table at Parsec. Oh, I shouldn't say Parsec.
Oh,
At
nice.
Confluence, which is
Oh,
our
compliment.
local.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear they've got a good guest of honor coming up.
yeah. That's the rumor. Being on the board now,
Oh,
I
yeah.
I have things to say about that. Important because I'm important now.
There you go. There you go. That's a good combo though, and a nice it kind of that's an interest it's a nice range, right? Kinda like modern indie stuff and then a classic. That's good.
Yeah,
Good. Well
yeah.
done.
I try to make sure that I read a lot of indie stuff because I'm like, does Tor really need one more person reviewing their books? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. The indie it's amping the indie signal is, I think, pretty important.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally,
yeah.
absolutely. All right. Well, you know what? We forgot to talk about our interview a little bit. Let's.
I thought that was so good. I've read a number of his books, and so I was very excited to get the chance to talk to him. And I really wanted to ask him about the Pinocchio book. So
Yeah,
this interview was everything I wanted. How about you?
amazing. I had no idea what to expect. I
Yeah,
have seen his name around so much lately. Like
yeah,
he just
yeah,
won the Goodreads award.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that his book just won some audiobook award, if I'm remembering.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like just seeing him around everywhere and being like, "Oh, I gotta check that out one day. I gotta check him out one day. And
yeah.
and then you emailed and were like, "Yeah, hey," and I was like, "Okay, perfect opportunity." So I really no expectations. Sometimes that's the best way.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I mean, it is a kind of weird business, and sometimes, yeah, we get people who are fairly big, which is it's nice to interview them. It's fun.
Hell yeah, and
Yeah.
very down to earth, I mean, I
Mhm.
kinda relate to the
Mhm.
ADHD stuff, and I think we all kept our ADHD together.
Yes.
We were
Yes.
concise, to the point. We covered conspiracy stuff, which I loved, and X-Files, which I am very excited that he was an X-Files
Yes.
fan.
I I I watched the shit out of the X-Files, I will confess. I mean, because I think I'm like a decade or so older than either of you, but, the X-Files were huge for me. Uh, so yeah. I didn't watch any of the new ones yet, though.
Oh,
I'm
oh.
afraid they will just sully my memory of it.
So, a couple years ago, I completed my X-Files rewatch because I
Oh,
decided
nice.
I'm gonna just rewatch all of them, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
back in the day, it's like, if you didn't watch them when they were on, then you missed them, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, so you went all the back you saw, like, there's, like, that second one that Jack Black is in and all of that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went and
Yeah.
saw I
Yeah.
rewatched all of 'em. Oh, and
Uh,
it's funny that you mentioned that because, like, Seth Green is in one, and, like,
yeah.
all these famous people that weren't famous yet were in a bunch of them.
Yes. Yes. It is really interesting to go back and see that. Yeah, no, and it was just such a good show, and I think, like, one of the reasons it was so interesting was at first there were a lot of holes and gaps that the kinda like the viewer got to sort of fill in for themselves, and then they
Yeah.
tried to explain stuff too much.
Yeah.
And you got all the stuff with the black goo, and then it was just like, yeah, it's gotten boring.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely did. And I will say about the new episodes, there's, like, 2 or 3 of them that I can't remember how many there are, but there was 2 or
Mhm.
3 I thought were excellent, and the other ones I was kinda like, "Eh, whatever."
Uh, oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, check them out. There are a couple of
Yeah,
them that are, like, really good. So,
okay.
yeah. Alright. So, does that wrap us up then? X-Files? We're gonna end with
I
X-Files?
I think it does. We're gonna end on the X-Files, going doo doo doo. I can't do the song though, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh, maybe I have to find that, and that'll be our ending music today. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, thanks to everybody for listening. We are keeping hope alive one episode at a time.
Bye-bye.
If This Goes On, Don't Panic is edited by and produced by Alan Bailey. Our theme music is by Father Flamethrower. Additional music is by Christopher Snydrowski. And outro music by Sable Aradia. Intro by Dave Robinson. Special thanks to our guest, TJ Klune. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you again soon.